bridge that gap. No script to wild, no dream to chap. Rewrite, enlighten, feedback, rap. All eyes up now, it's ASAP.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to another powerful edition of the ASAP African webinar series, proudly presented under the banner of It's a Kid's World. Today, we're going to be diving into one of the most exciting and fast-evolving creative landscapes, the children's African media, including the animation industry. The industry is more than entertainment. It is education, empowerment, innovation, and identity. From Namibia to Kenya, Nigeria to South Africa, we're witnessing a cultural and creative renaissance driven by passionate storytellers, daring studios, and bold new voices. Well, how do we ensure this momentum grows? What would it take for the industry to become not just visible, but fertile on the global stage? We'll be exploring these questions with a policy advocate. This is a chance to go beyond the surface into the challenges, the triumphs, and the tremendous potentials that lies within the children's African media, including animation. And to help us do that, we have a very special guest, a passionate advocate in children's African media. His journey so far is a powerful example of what's possible when we dare to dream big. And I'll now like you to kindly introduce yourself, please, Dr. John.
Thank you, Zainab. My name is Dr. John Ogbole. I'm a child rights advocate and media policy expert. I hold a PhD in mass communication and a postgraduate diploma in education. Currently, I'm the board chairman of Children's Media Action Africa, a not-for-profit organization based here in Nigeria that advocate for the creation and distribution of culturally relevant children's media content in Africa. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Dr. John. So the next question is, what role do you think local storytelling and cultural representation can play in shaping African animation for not just within Africa, but also global audience?
Wow, storytelling is a key, when it comes to animation business. We are looking beyond just entertainment. We are looking at an opportunity to, let people know about our stories, let people know about our values. So the storytelling is very key. And here in Africa, for over a long time, stories have been told by the foreigners. And unfortunately, he who tells your story can actually shape your history. So today we are beginning to see that animation is key, but more important is the role of a storyteller. And storytelling in animation is not just like, the usual storytelling that you see. It involves some techniques. And presently we are having some challenges in training people in that area of storytelling that could effectively, translate our values, our cultural history into that animation platform that can engage global audience and effectively, represent us the way that we want to be seen. Because for, like I said from the beginning, we've been represented for far too long by those who don't even have deeper understanding about us. So the storytelling link is like, a new lens that will help us, or that will help the global audience to have a deeper and better understanding about our cultural values, our identity, and everything that has to do with Africa.
Thank you for that. Yeah. And are there any specific regions or countries that you think are taking or leading the change when it comes to children's media, including animation development, and what lessons can we learn and apply from their success?
Yes. When you're talking about a country, or probably a country that is leading in Africa as an example that we can learn from, the right example that will come to mind is South Africa. South Africa, to a point, has been able to realize the power of using animation to drive their growth. And there is a sort of government intervention, a sort of investments, in the animation industry in South Africa. And you could see some studios like the trigger fish in South Africa, doing a lot beyond just South African territory. They're exporting some of their content. And what have they done differently? Tax rebates. To a point that a company that's involved in animation could have up to 35% in tax rebates. And you could see also government giving a kind of policy framework, to support this animation. But let's just look at Nigeria, for example. One of the major problems you're having here in Nigeria is clear policy support, clear government support. This is not to say that we've not been able to, experience some skeletal support from the government, but it has always come in generic form. There used to be this concept by the government about the IDAS. And today, we're also having like the 3MTT, which is the 3 million talent, technical talent. But when you look at it, it's not that industry specific. It's for all creative, it's all encompassing. So at the same time, you see this catering for other areas of the economy. And because it's not industry specific, it sometimes loses its value because the attention that we expect, to be paid to it is not really, there the way you expect it. And probably I could mention another country that is doing something that one can also learn from. I think it's Namibia. Recently, I think there's a department of digital art and animation that was being established in one of their universities, which is a way of, cutting off the challenges, one of the challenges of talent. So with that department, they'll be able to create, groom young people, young animators that can, boost the industry.
Thank you. And would you say there are other countries outside of Africa that are like leading or have done it and there's success stories? And can we like study them and see then how we can apply it to our environment, particularly like in Nigeria? So outside of Africa.
Of course, you could have countries like America, you could have countries like the UK, you could also have countries like Japan, and recently you could have countries like India who are also doing a lot that we can also leverage on. I've gone conferences and we've seen how well these guys have been doing. And if you currently look at the distribution channels in Africa, most of the content you see that we are, engaging with are mostly content created from these countries I've just mentioned, the UK, Canada, and the India, the United States of America. So these are countries that actually they have gone beyond the basic that we're looking at. They have the technical expertise that we in Africa can as well borrow from or collaborate, to grow our own industry.
Thank you. So now we're just going to move on to the topic relating to policy and educational initiatives. So the first question for that particular one would be, what policies or government interventions do you believe could significantly children's sphere, including the animation industry in Africa?
Yes, I said from the beginning that policy is key. When you're talking about empowerment of young people in terms of skills development, we're talking about funding. These are all policy-driven, efforts. So in Africa, what can policy, be looking at? We're talking about talent development. Government can probably have specialized admission programs for young people, like what the 3MTT Nigeria is trying to do, even though it's not industry specific. But such initiative, if it is industry specific, can go a long way, backed by policy, to develop talent for the industry. We could also have financial incentive. Like I told you about South Africa, if there is one thing that is driving that industry today, it is because of the financial incentive that you can see. And this can come through things like grants and subsidies, can come through with like incentivizing, private investment, and even access to soft loan for, animators. That could go a long way, to help the industry. And what other policy can we also look at? What about policy like promoting local content? What about having quota system for distribution channels in Africa? Like if you look at most, okay, let me still bring you back to Nigeria. If you have look at a platform, distribution platform network like the multi-choice, that operates DSTV and GoTV, it will surprise you that there's no quota system. And what that has done is to allow them to saturate their platforms with foreign content, depriving us and even local animators the opportunity not to showcase their platform. So government can as well make a policy to promote, local content to enable people in Africa to have access to content created in Africa. Then the other thing that I think policy can do for us mostly here in Africa is about fostering partnership. Government can help us to drive, how do we have opportunity? For instance, we could have things like workshop. We can have things like collaboration, have opportunity platform in Africa, like you have in the UK. You have a platform like Children's Media Conference that a lot of people come together to discuss. We could as well have such in Africa, whereby people can come from different environments, showcase their talent, and government can encourage this through, funding opportunities for such a platform for content creators to, mingle with their counterparts from abroad and share knowledge, network, and grow the industry.
Thank you. Okay. And how can early childhood education initiatives integrate animation to enhance learning outcomes and cultural identity?
Good. When we're looking at early childhood, the beauty about children is that they are always fascinated, with moving pictures, colors. And animation is actually one of those things that, children love to, watch. And many countries across the world have been able to integrate this. But in Africa, we are slow to catch up. Though we are also having that discussion, how do we integrate, animation into early childhood? And this can be done through government policy. Government can have a policy to, incorporate, animation into curriculum in schools. It's going to be a very good way to do this. Also, what about accessibility? Today, do we really have an app for school children that could really make it easy for them to have access to local content? It's not really available. So government can as well fund, young people or with the opportunity to, have an app created that can help to, contribute. Then what about revenue allocation? Production is capital intensive. Distribution is capital intensive. So you cannot, remove government policy, in integrating animation into early childhood, like you've seen it done in other countries like Canada, even in the United States of America, in the UK. So in Nigeria, government is very key in integrating this. So policymakers, what is the message for them? The message is that there's a need for special funding to be provided. There's a need for policy to ensure that ministries of education in Africa begin to integrate, animation into their curriculum. There's a need for accessibility to this content, but it's not enough to produce this content. This content also needs to be assessed by the target audience, the young people. And the young people that we're talking about, they're no longer available to watch the traditional television. It's easier for them to have access to this content through their parents' smartphones. And the easiest way to do that is to create apps to make distribution easy. So all these are what government that is, intentional can do to promote, objective learning in Africa.
Thank you. So what would you say what would you say are some of the key barriers preventing widespread adoption or creation of animation in Africa, in Africans' educational curriculum, particularly in Nigeria, because obviously that's where you're familiar with, and how can that be addressed?
Basically, when you come to, okay, let us square down to
Mm,
Nigeria.
yeah.
You discover that there's that low awareness of the importance of what animation can do in education. So the level of awareness is low, especially among key stakeholders, policymakers. And this is one thing that we want to project positively. Let them begin to see that
Mm,
sometimes a fraction of the budget for education that goes into animation can do a lot to change, the challenges we are having today. And what is the challenge we are having today in education? Poor educational outcome. And if you are familiar with Nigeria, you agree with me that the recent JAM result that was released, more than 75% failure rate. That shows that there's educational deficit gaps in Nigeria. And animation has incorporating animation into this is key to this. So one of the barriers I can say is low awareness of this. And we're trying to create that awareness so that we can see that, yes, you don't need to spend every budget to have this. Even a fraction of that budget that you have for education can go a long way, to train your people. Then what about the skill manpower? Training is key. We have the shortage of skill manpower. We may really want to adapt, but are the animators available to, if you look at the population, Nigeria, for an example, we have over 200 million people and we have about 36 states in this country, plus the Federal Capital Territory. So, and we have diverse, ethnic nationalities. Catering for this huge number, it's challenging. So you need a pool of talented young people. So there's that training gap for young animators. And we could also look at another challenge, another barrier, which is funding support. We can always come back to that funding. Funding is key because starting animation, especially for social enterprise, is not always easy and it's not always market driven. So
mm,
there's always a need for an intervention, funding support. So that lack of funding support is really one of the major barriers that we are having. Then the mother of it all, like I've always said, is the policy framework. If government can make a policy, because at the moment, we are lacking in the policy to support. And this policy is not in terms of regulations of what you should or what you should not know. It's about pro-industry policy framework, a kind of policy that will attract talents, a kind of policy
mm,
that will attract collaboration, a kind of
mm,
policy that will encourage co-production, kind of policy that will, stimulate this industry is what we are looking at. That kind of policy at the moment is lacking, and all boils down to the awareness. When the policymaker, when government in particular begin to understand the benefit inherent, incorporating
mm.
this policy will be the initial drive, to generating drive, for the children's media industry in Africa.
Thank you. So this is a question that I just came up with because you're talking about initiative and you mentioned earlier about asapAFRICA, and I feel that that kind of keys in. I guess, also your role as a policy advocate. So can you tell us more about asapAFRICA, what it's about, and how it ties into all these conversations that we've had so far?
Yes, the place of advocacy in
Mm,
creating effective policy can never be overemphasized.
mm,
We've done a series of research
mm,
to see why the industry is not moving forward. And
mm,
one of those things we've discovered is that there's a need for a body to drive the governance, to create the awareness, to bring
mm,
people, under the same umbrella to start having this conversation in terms of the awareness creation, in terms
mm,
of the policy support, in terms of the funding opportunities, in terms of, training opportunities. So the idea of Children's Media Africa is to have an umbrella that, can help in bringing people under one umbrella so that
mm,
can begin to talk about putting children's media in the front burner of things in Africa, and also driving government into action
mm,
action in terms of policy, because policy is key. no matter what you intend to do, if the environment that you're operating is not conducive in terms of policy framework, it will be difficult for you to break through. And that is why we are actually on ground to encourage governments, to get involved. And government involvement is not always about funding, because in Africa, we are blessed with billionaires. We are blessed with people, who have the resources. We have the Dangotes, the richest man in Africa. We have the likes of Tony Elumelu Foundation, what are doing extremely well in a philanthropic, gesture. So we feel that if the government decided to take the front burner and push this, such individuals can be encouraged, to put certain kind of endowments funding in creating this legacy, because we see it as legacy projects that can stimulate the foundation of a country. Because the young people, we can always call them, they are the leaders of tomorrow. But they can always become the leaders of tomorrow when they are given the requisite training. We could see the failure in the conventional education system. Animation integration becomes the key. So in asapAFRICA, we are in the forefront of advocating whereby animation can be given the needed attention in terms of the training, in terms of funding, and also policy support.
Thank you. So obviously your journey to setting up to asapAFRICA, you visited a few countries and you've learned a lot on how they've set up their system, especially relating to kids media. What has inspired you to keep going? Because obviously the Nigerian environment, sometimes you feel like giving up, but what has inspired you to kind of just keep going and not give up?
Yeah, sometimes what keeps you going is when you hear stories from people who have been there before you, and they were able to record results, which you feel that can also be replicated. And I can give you an example. We have a foundation in the UK. I visited the United Kingdom, and I was able to have interaction with the director of Children's Media Foundation, and I learned a lot from their stories. The environment from the onset for them was not never easy, but I was so happy to learn from some of the efforts that they've been able to make in the children's media industry in the UK, and we feel that such people remain largely positive influence to keep us going, because whatever we're doing, it's worth doing well, and sometimes it takes time. So we feel that no matter what it is in Nigeria, we can make a breakthrough by remaining consistent, no matter the difficulty, the challenges. We can still make headway, though we don't know when that will be, but we are vigilant, we are resilient, and we are valuable to ensure that in the next few years from now, we have the positive stories that we are looking for. And I'm sure that day can be today, it can be tomorrow, but we know in our lifetime we are going to see that day.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. So talking about the future now, future vision and impact. What's your vision for the kids media industry, including animation in Africa in the next decade?
Yes, if you look at Africa at the moment, I think I can say we have the population. I can say we have the stories. I can say everything about Africa is like gold that you can tap into. So I want to say that it is my vision that in the next couple of years, Africa should become the hub of animation in the world. You should have every established industry having, their presence in Africa, because this is where the story is. This is where the population is. Let me give you an example. In Nigeria, according to the UN data, currently young people below the age of 18 are approximately above 100 million. So imagine this large population just in Nigeria alone. So the market is here, the story is here, and you also have the pool of talents. We have young people who are ready, So when the people are trained, I'm seeing, Africa that will take over from the likes of Canada, from the likes of US, from, Denmark and other places. Nigeria will become the hub. And we also have this vision that the funding problem, the policy problems become a thing of the past, whereby government will also buy into, what we are talking about by providing progressive and industry-friendly policy framework that will drive the industry. The necessary funding, framework will be set up, and also the talent pool will be available. Thank God for the technological breakthrough. Also, we also see young people who are making, history every day. So we believe that in the next couple of years, Africa will become the one-stop shop for animation in the world.
Thank you. And what advice would you give to policymakers, or even well, I guess the government had policymakers, to integrate the kids media industry, including animation, into early childhood education?
Yeah, we've said something similar from the beginning.
Yeah.
Policy, 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 policy. Policy in sense of integrating animation into our curricula across across education levels, the scholars, early school age, secondary school. You could see this policy, if implemented by government and being effectively implemented, could help to drive, the integration, and also access to this content. Access, like I said from the beginning, is key. The content may be available, but what if they are not accessible by these students? So government can also support the industry by creating apps, which I said from the beginning, creating apps that can help in the distribution of this content to schools. Like I said from the beginning also, young people are more endeared to their parents' smartphones. Also, you could also have gadgets for young people now in school, smart tablets for young people. So imagine having access to all those content through your tablets, through your smartphones in school. It makes access very easy. But government must be seen to be encouraging, the industry through what we call fund allocation, not just for the production of this content, but also for the distribution of this content. So basically, this what I think can be done.
Thank you. So this is a final question that just came to mind. And I think in all these conversations, I'm going to put my hat, a young person's hat on, because they might be thinking, yeah, all this is all good, but how does that pay my bills? Because in their head, they're thinking policy advocacy is free job. But you think there's a way that could be a sector in itself where jobs could be created, especially as policymakers and stuff like that. There's potential to address some of the challenges relating to employment in Africa using this area.
Yes, and one thing that the South African government has realized early is that the animation industry can be parts, to grow their economy. It can be a part to unlock that potential for job creation. And because of that, government is, making a lot of policies. For instance, as a foreign company in South Africa, if you're able to employ at least 30%, or you have your workforce of 30%, as Black South Africans, you could have up to 5% incentive in whatever you do. And in Nigeria and other African countries, this can also be replicated because of what? There is huge business in animation. Animation is not just what you create for your own country alone. It has global value. It's what can be so you can resell your content to other countries of the world, and it has a huge economic implication. Can contribute to your GDP, can contribute to foreign exchange earning, can also contribute to creation of job opportunities. And in Nigeria today, it surprise you that a lot of young people who have taken interest into animation will never look the way of having 9 to 5 jobs because of what they have seen as the potential for this industry, what most of them have also experienced while going across, across the globe for conferences, saying that animation industry is a huge industry that can create job opportunities. So what government needs to do is to take advantage of the population we have in Africa, take advantage of the stories of our rich cultural values, take advantage of the interest that the West is going to have, and put in place proper policy framework that can attract the right kind of, funding, talents, technology, and in so doing, you unlock these potentials for job creation for your young people in Africa. It's possible. It has been done elsewhere. Why not Nigeria? Why not Africa as a whole?
Thank you so much. We've come to the end of our conversation. Dr. John, I just want to thank you for such an eye-opening and thought-provoking conversation. We've explored the role of policy, especially from government perspective, investment in shaping the next decade of children's media, including animation in Africa. So if there's one thing we've taken away from today, it's this, that Africa is not just participating in the children's media, including animation, we're redefining it. With our stories, our innovations, and our commitment to empowering young minds, we're laying the foundation for an industry that is sustainable, inclusive, and globally relevant. So as we look ahead, may we continue to champion the policies with people like yourself at the forefront that supports creative growth, embed animation into education in a meaningful way, and build a connected ecosystem where advocates, policymakers, animators, educators, studio owners, investors, everybody gets to work together. Thank you so much for being part of this very important conversation. The future of children's media, including animation in Africa, is bright, and together we'll make sure the world sees it shine. So thank you once more, Dr. John.
Thank you, Zainab. It has been an utmost pleasure speaking with you.
Thank you. Likewise.